We just had an opportunity to hear from the real leader, the President of the United States. And I must tell you, what he's saying to every single American these days, he said to the Americans in that auditorium today who represent the vast breadth of America and every walk of life of America. And his focus, again, is how do we help the middle class continue to just get itself going again? How do we help America create those jobs? How do we, as our whip is so forceful in saying, make it in America, how do we do this in a way that makes people believe again that we're back, we're strong, and you can dream about that American dream as well? Well, 210 days into this calendar year, that's more than half the year gone by, with only about 81 of those days being work days for the Congress here in the House of Representatives. We mentioned to the President that we want to do more with him. We're interested in doing more than just passing some dozen bills in that more than 6-month period that we've been in Congress in 2013. We're tired of voting to repeal the historic health care reform, the health security law that today makes sure that people who have pre-existing conditions don't have to worry about losing their health insurance. But yet this week, as we mentioned to the President, we're going to vote for the 40th time to repeal those health security protections that Americans now understand and need. And so we're ready to get to work with the President of the United States, and we're ready to work with him to keep America working, because the best way to reduce our deficits is to put Americans to work. And so with that, let me now yield to our leader, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We had a very enthusiastic meeting with the President of the United States. He reiterated some of the message that has gone out across the country about jobs, 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 seeing everything we do through the eyes of how we can responsibly and in a balanced way reduce the deficit to create jobs, to build a better future for our children. In a very succinct way, it was a really masterful presentation that he made on the subject of jobs and the future. On the subject of the Affordable Care Act, we all agreed nothing succeeds like success, and is really important, and we're confident that the implementation of the Affordable Care Act is successful. It's about our children and everything that he has talked about, whether it is income disparity, whether it's universal preschool, whether it's the Affordable Care Act, you name it, is about our children and giving them and their families a better shot to participate in the prosperity of our country. I was very proud of what the President has been doing on the road and as President of the United States. And today we had the chance to go back and forth on some of the issues that so he could hear some of our priorities and we his. I saluted the President because his birthday is this week as the persistent President. He has been persistent. He's, of course, very brilliant and a leader and articulate and has strategic thinking as he goes forward. But it is his persistence on behalf of America's working families that is something that serves our country so very, very well. And it's that persistence that will improve their lives. We're very proud of our President, and we had a great meeting with him this morning. Now I'd like to yield to our distinguished Democratic whip, Mr. Hoyer.
Thank you very much, Madam Leader. As all of you would expect, we talked about a variety of issues. But the President brought every issue to how it impacted on expanding the middle class and growing jobs. He talked about immigration being a way to grow jobs and grow our economy. He talked about manufacturing and make it in America, about how we grow manufacturing, grow good jobs, good security for our people. He talked about education, investment in infrastructure. He talked about the Affordable Care Act that the chairman spoke about, of giving security to our people, bringing costs down for our people so that they can have health care assurance for themselves and their family. And lastly, one of the issues I would mention is that I think is critically important. He talked about voting rights, because ultimately it is the collective wisdom of America that will make a difference. It's the voting of Americans. And we need to ensure that all Americans have access to the ballot box, and that we assist, not impede, their access to the ballot box. The president then closed with what I thought was a very compelling statement to us all. And he said, look, it's the values that we represent. It's the direction that we want to take this country. It's the assistance we want to give to all of the American people to have a better quality of life and more assurance in their security. It is that on which we are focused and that on which we are right, he says, and we just need to keep focused on those issues. So it was a very positive meeting, a meeting which I think was an important one for us to have with the president as we leave for this August break and go to talk to the American people about where we are and where we need to go. We have 9 days after this week left in the legislative session before the government needs to be refunded. We have probably 60 days or so before we need to deal with the debt issue. And the president made it very clear that while he was prepared to work with our Republican colleagues, he was not prepared to put at risk the creditworthiness of the United States of America. And I think all of our caucus on that clapped and indicated their support of his resolve. So I now want to introduce my good friend, the assistant leader, who himself has been very, very focused all of his life, but particularly now on voting rights for all of our people. Jim Clyburn of South Carolina, the assistant leader.
Thank you, Mr. Whip, Madam Leader, Mr. Chair, and distinguished colleagues. I believe if I were to try and sum up the President's presentation to us today in just a few words, I would say a better bargain for America's middle class. We've been hearing a lot this year about a grand bargain and all of that. How do we reduce the deficit, get rid of, pay down the debt, how we go about trying to create jobs. But I think that all of us would agree that the one constant that has seemed to have gone throughout the entire stream of things has been the growing inequality that exists in our system. I saw it described a couple of days ago that our country is becoming the country with the least amount of opportunity and the most of the inequalities in our society. And the president was very focused today on what we need to do to create jobs, to pay down our debt and deficits in a way that is fair and balanced, and how to create equality of opportunity for all of our citizens. I came away from the meeting today feeling very good about our prospects going forward. I think that we are poised to do what the American people would like to see us do, and that is give us a better deal for working men and women in this great country of ours. And with that, I'd like to yield to our Vice Chair, Mr. Crowley of New York.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks to the leadership. If the first question to us all is, what was the message of the president? I was within the earshot of the president as he was walking out, and one of you asked him that very question. And he said, jobs, the middle class, and growth. And within those three words, you have the essence of what the president spoke about today. You've often heard me say, I think, at our breakout after our caucus meeting, that what our Republican colleagues are lacking is a vision for America. And now they wear that lack of vision as a badge of honor. We've heard the speaker on the Sunday talk shows, but quite frankly, that is the Republican caucus today. I know we'd all like to see them maybe become more functional and have a vision again for America, one that we may not agree with, but at least have a vision. And we, as the Democratic caucus, have a vision for this country. We want to see it continue to move forward, as does our president. And with that, I now introduce to you the chair of the DCCC, Steve Israel of New York.
Thanks so much. One of the things the president said was, if it means anything to be a Democrat, it's fighting for folks who aren't looking to appear on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. They just want a job. and they want a better job, and they want bigger paychecks. And that's what this meeting was about with the president, is who we're fighting for and who the Republicans are fighting for. We now have a compromise. 64% of voters in this country, we just saw from a poll, 64% of voters in this country believe that House Republicans are not doing enough to compromise to move the economy forward. Over a third of Republicans believe that House Republicans are not doing enough to compromise to move the economy forward. Now the president has proposed a compromise. The Republicans get what they want, tax breaks for big corporations, and Democrats get what we want, jobs for the middle class. And we're going to put that compromise on the ballot in 2014. And the need for compromise and the need for investments in the middle class was the focus of the president's appearance today. With that, I'll yield back to our chairman.
We'll take questions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what was the persistent president has had these ideas and more ideas and more ideas, but House Republicans keep on taking them out. Other than going to the voters in 2014, what could you do between now and 2014 to see some of these ideas actually become law? Did he discuss that?
And I know the leader will want to respond because she's the one that mentioned the president as the persistent president. But I will simply say this. Our members are ready to go out in August and talk to their constituents. We are asking them to please be out there as often as possible in August to talk to Americans and talk to them about how we are ready to work with the president to help this country create more jobs, to continue to expand and improve our health care opportunities, and to make sure we get things done like fixing a broken immigration system. So we're ready. We're looking for our Republican colleagues to join us, but make no mistake, we are ready to work with the president, compromise, as has been said earlier, but work to get some of this done, because we know that while we've created over 7 million jobs in the last 40 months, that's not enough. We want more.
Did the president ask you to do that when August break to go out there?
Leader, I'll let you go.
Well, let me go to your first question. President Lincoln, as you've heard me say over and over again, said public sentiment is everything. And any progress that we have made in this 202 days that this Congress has existed has been a result of public sentiment. The Republicans in the Senate realized after 70% of the Hispanic community voted Democratic, not just for president but for Congress, that it was probably a good idea to move forward for bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform. It wasn't until, and it was hundreds of days late, but nonetheless until the message was very clear in the public about the Violence Against Women Act that the Republican leadership brought it to the floor. Overwhelmingly voted against it, but nonetheless they brought it to the floor. So income inequality, for example, that the president is talking about, there is tremendous support for raising the minimum wage. That would help lessen the disparity in terms of income inequality and making work pay, especially for women, as you know we have in our women's agenda. But we don't really want to wait until the election and have these be items on the election agenda. We want to get something done sooner, because the agenda of the Republicans saying to the president, our agenda is nothing and our timetable is never. Well, never doesn't work for the American people when they need jobs. So whatever subject you can name, it comes back to, does it create jobs? Does it reduce the deficit? Let's take that conversation to the public. We hope to succeed with the issues that's more important in the election. I will say another thing. Sometimes the public turns off to the discussion of process here, obstruction, this or that. It's understandable. Also, the inside language on are we going to raise the debt ceiling? Are we going to shut down government? What does all of that mean? Well, what it means to you and to everyone with the 401k is that they're going to be losers in this. And I think it's really important for people to know that these decisions that we're making here have ramifications in the lives of the American people and how that affects them. How many of you check your 401k on a regular basis? Maybe you don't, but many Americans do. Since the president has been president, the stock market has soared, improving their individual lot. Any discussion of a shutdown or not reaching the debt ceiling and undermining the full faith and credit of the United States of America hurts people individually. They should know that. So this is about a few good items to take to the public on how it affects them. And the most important thing is how we create good-paying jobs as we reduce the deficit to strengthen the middle class. So we're depending on you to get the message out. Stenny wants to speak to that.
Just want to make a brief comment because I think the president has indicated, as much as any president with whom I've worked over the last 33 years, a willingness to talk to those with whom he disagrees or disagree with him, to get something done and to compromise. And he's indicated that in a budget he submitted this year. He included compromise. But let me make a point to that all of you know very well. Where do we make compromise in the Congress of the United States? In a conference. When there's a disagreement between House and Senate, we go to conference. That's the regular order of which Speaker Boehner speaks. We passed a budget over 120 days ago in the Senate and the House. No conference. A refusal to go to conference. An effort to go to conference by Senator Reid in the Senate. We can't, of course, initiate that here. But they've refused to do so. The Farm Bill. They passed a Farm Bill, and Pete Sessions, the chairman of the Rules Committee, said, we're passing this Farm Bill without food assistance for people who are hungry. We're passing it without that so that we can go to conference. That was a couple of weeks ago, and no effort to go to conference. So that I think the president's willing, we're willing. Very frankly, we Democrats have indicated both in the Senate and the House, we're willing to sit down to try to reach compromise, which is how democracy works.
Yes, Madam Leader, did the President promise to do more to sell the Affordable Care Act? And are you satisfied that you're going to get enough, that he's going to make the case to the public strongly enough in the face of these Republican attacks you're going to see as we get closer to implementation?
We're very confident about what the White House is doing and how we are working together to implement the Affordable Care Act, yes.
Take one last question, Ginger, and then we'll go.
The President made a pretty full-throated defense of Larry Summers. Were you surprised by that? And did he give you the indication, particularly, of course, that he's leaning more towards nominating Summers?
The President did not bring up the subject of Larry Summers. Someone else did. And the President is the President of the United States, and he did make I don't want to say a defense, but he just spoke what he thought about Larry Summers. But it wasn't really about Larry Summers. It was about how important this decision is. The ramifications of who the chairman of the Fed is are there for a long time to come, recognizing that there are differing views in our caucus on the subject and how we go forward, but understanding that whoever the president chooses will be received with great respect by our caucus.
Thank you very much.